Live from a bunker in the heart of the Ozarks, a podcast that wasn't ready, so he's gonna redo that intro. It's If-Pop. Hey guys. My computer decided to do some interesting things there for a second. So let me get my notes up, shall we? Let's see. I think they disappeared. Oh, there they are. All right, take two on the intro. By the way, welcome everybody. Here we go. Live from a bunker in the heart of the Ozarks, a podcast that's scared, but we hang in there. It's Sif-Pop. Welcome to Sif-Pop Weekly, streaming live most weekends or available to download later in your podcast feed. Unless, of course, you're a patron.
Patrons get perks.
Patrons get those perks.
Jeffrey Bezos.
I'm your host, Aaron Dicer, and his gift is not a sideshow attraction. It's Andrew Ormsby, ladies and gentlemen.
Ahoy!
Good to see you. Each week we'll chat about movies, TV, and whatever else from the pop culture universe is on our minds. And please welcome our guest this week. Call him and he'll tell you a joke. It's Jonathan Watkins!
Hey, what's up, guys?
Good to have you
Thanks
back, man.
for having me.
Of course. Jonathan and I are co-workers.
Yes.
And also do another weekly podcast together called Behind the Sins for the Cinema Sins Podcast Network.
Yes.
And it's always good to have you on. I kind of reach out to you when we've got a little horror going on because I know you're very, let's say, versed in the horror
centric. Yes.
Yeah.
Horror adjacent.
So how you been, man?
That second R. Horror.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
Two syllables.
I am not horror centric. I am horror.
Two syllables. Yes.
That's
two
why
syllables.
We can talk about my college days, but I'd rather not.
We are going to talk a little bit about The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It today. So, John had Jonathan on for that. And then I wasn't sure what we were going to do for our second movie, because a lot of the ones I was looking at either didn't sound interesting or I couldn't really find where they were showing or playing. There was one, I think, Sylvester Stallone movie that was supposed to come out this weekend. I can't remember what it was called. Samaritan or something like that. No, it wasn't Rocky.
Yeah.
Was not Rocky. And I couldn't find out where it was playing. And then I was like, everybody's buzzing about this new Bo Burnham special. So we're going to do Bo Burnham's Inside for our second review today, as well as talk about our top 5 comedy stand-up specials in our BEC for the day. And of course, we'll do some buried treasure along the way as well. But I'm ready to get into it, guys. If you guys are,
let's
get right into it.
I hate that I missed a Dicer made me do it joke. I had that right in front of me. But I'm still going to talk about it.
Yes,
that's
fun. Conjuring 4, The Dicer Made Me Do It. Yep, exactly. Totally get it. Let's talk about The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. Paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren take on one of the most sensational cases of their careers after a cop stumbles upon a dazed and bloodied young man walking down the road. Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson are back as the couple investigating based on the real life couple. You've got a story that is pretty tangentially related to the actual story of what happened here, although a lot of the basic ideas are the same and kind of the basic plot is the same. This is the third Conjuring movie, but I'm going to say the 8th movie in the Conjuring expanded universe is the number I've heard.
Like the
Yeah, that's
Annabelle and the Nun and stuff like that, right? That don't have the Warrens in it. Is that right?
Well, actually, I was going to say the last Annabelle movie, Annabelle Comes Home, was about their daughter, Judy. So they're actually in that one. I mean, I almost feel like that one feels like a Conjuring film as well. But this is still technically, this is the third one.
I guess I should say right up front, I've only seen the I guess you could say the real 3 movies, like the first Conjuring, the second one, and this one. I haven't seen I haven't seen Annabelle or the Nun or any of those. So
you're good. You're good. I mean, there's some fun. There's some fun to be had in a couple of the Annabelle movies, but yeah, skipping the Nun and La Llorona or whatever how you pronounce that. You're good.
Yeah, I've actually seen, I think, all of them except La Llorona. I think that's the only one I haven't like gone out of my way to catch up on. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that I loved the first Conjuring movie. I loved is a strong word. I really appreciated the first Conjuring movie as a non-horror fan. We've talked about this before. But I thought it was really well made, very intense, understood suspense in a really good way. Conjuring 2 is not bad either. So I'm interested what you guys think of Conjuring 3. Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay? And Jonathan, you go first.
It's interesting. I just watched this yesterday, and if we had talked about this right after I watched it, I probably would have been in the okay camp. Now that I've had close to 24 hours to think about it, I'm pretty firmly in the I just didn't like it.
Okay.
So I'll go with
that. Andrew, what about you?
Shockingly, I'm in the it was okay camp.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
I know.
Guys,
Aaron?
I'm in the hated it camp. I hated this movie. And a lot of that passion just comes from probably that it's not my genre to begin with. Like I don't tend to enjoy these kind of movies. And you add to that some other things that annoyed me, and I just, by about halfway in, I'm just like, oh, do I really have to watch the rest of this?
Oh man,
James Wan was missed, right?
Yes, I think that is what it comes down to. We'll talk about it more. Andrew surprisingly liked it more than either of us.
What's going on?
You get to start. You get to start. You get to start, man. What are some of your general thoughts?
This is a terrible title for a movie. I just want to say that right off the bat. I think that something that maybe it's just because I haven't seen the other Conjuring movies in so long that I kind of just forgot that that's what these movies were like. They're kind of, they're horror movies, but there's also a detective element to it. It kind of reminds me of Exorcism of Emily Rose a bit, even though that's more court drama as opposed to detective work. But it's not a typical horror movie, I guess you could say. There's trying to be a structure to these movies that is different than what I normally, just scoff at. There's plenty to scoff at this movie, don't forget. Here's my biggest pro with the movie, though. I really think that Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson have really good chemistry.
Yes.
I think that them working together is like, I buy it. And maybe that's why these movies have, spawned so many sequels, is because if your two leads, work so well together, people just want to come back and see more of them. So that's really my big takeaway from this one is, Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson are just great together.
Yeah, I would agree. It really is, in my opinion, the sole thing that, I enjoyed about the movie was their performances and their chemistry together. And some of that is built upon the first 2 movies as well. And so you've got history there. And that is the strength you can have with expanded universes or sequels or those kind of things, is you can build on stuff that works already. And I do think they work together. So I think that's a valid positive and probably the only one I had while watching it. Jonathan, did you have anything else you liked about it other than?
I'm kind of with you guys. I mean, Farmiga and Wilson I'm never going to find one of these movies not watchable. And it's 100%. I don't think. And it's 100% because of them, because that's like Aaron, but that's why I don't think I hate it, because they're so good, and there's stuff with them in this that I enjoyed a lot. And I will say, like, the first hour was okay most of the time. Like, there was stuff I liked about the beginning, and then there was some stuff in the kind of in the middle of that first hour that was fine. I think it's the last like 45 minutes or so of this movie where it just goes off the rails as far as I'm concerned. And I started losing interest quickly. I think it's probably around when they go to that small town, which I kind of enjoyed that sequence where they go to that small town to try to find somebody else that maybe had an interaction with this demon or whatever. Once after that point, it just kept losing my interest more and more as it went along. And then it just kind of became like what a lot of these other Conjuring verse movies are, I guess.
Yeah. And it's so disappointing when it becomes as cliche as the other ones, as bad as the other ones, because this was the Conjuring and Conjuring 2, both, if nothing else, were technically proficient, were had interesting plots that, you know, you could maintain, you know, some sort of compelling interest in. And I just didn't feel like this one did. I'm with you, maybe not for the first half. I'm definitely with you on the first scene. I think the exorcism in the first scene is done really, really well. And I think there's some great, some really great effects work, some really great performance work going on there. And it sets up the movie in this really wonderful way that then just grinds to a halt and just is like, oh, this whole thing we set up, we're not even going to, you know, really worry about it for another half hour. And then at that point, it's kind of like not even what you thought it was going to be. It's not, I don't know. It's hard to explain other than to just say, like, I just wasn't interested after
There's
that.
like a mystery element to this. Like, there's like almost like it's not who done it. I mean, you know who did, but you don't know exactly what this thing is. And they spend a lot of time on them trying to figure that out. And I don't know, it feels almost like you're watching a TV movie or something. Yeah.
My biggest complaint with this movie can be summed up by one character's line in this entire movie. And it's whenever Stuart Denethor, son of Ectherion, says, why doesn't matter. Yes, it does. It matters so much whenever you're watching a movie. Whenever I need to know why any of this is happening, it matters. Why is probably the most important thing in any movie. Yeah, you can say that, oh, this is based on true events and stuff like that, so you can go based on whatever that, you know, however, but no, none of that matters. You're making a movie, you have to have structure, you have to have reasons, you have to have all of these things in place for me to care. The only thing I care about is Patrick and Vera. They're really good. And that's honestly maybe the only thing. Maybe, okay, I'm taking it back. I'm on the low side of okay. I'm on the low side of okay now. Because I think
by the end of the episode, you'll not like it.
Yeah, I was never scared once in this movie. I don't know if is Insidious in the Conjuring.
No, universe? It's just James Wan just directed a couple of them, but I remember they are separate.
Was in those too, right?
He is.
Okay, maybe that's why I just got them confused. Yeah, but those movies were creepy, and I actually got scared. Yeah. But I don't remember ever being scared in any of the Conjuring movies. I just think maybe they're. I don't know if they're supposed to be scary or they're just supposed to be eerie. Because I get scared easily, and if this movie didn't scare me, then maybe they're just, you know, I'm trying to figure it out.
Well, and just none of the other performances are that engaging. And I'm not saying it's necessarily the actor's fault. I mean, that has a lot to do with the editing, the writing, all that kind of stuff. Sure. So, but it is. You go like you got Farmiga and Wilson, and then it's just like. No, I don't know. I mean, it was cool to see John Noble show up. Like, that was fun because I like John Noble, but he doesn't add anything to this, right? And so
like, I was like, hey, no, okay. Here's the thing I hate about John Noble's character. He is so painfully trying to play that character, like without any subtlety whatsoever. Yeah, that it's like, okay, we're coming back to you later on, I bet. But it's. I think I agree with you. I don't think anybody's giving a really bad performance besides him. I think, but it's more of a nobody is on the level of Vera and Patrick that I'm like, I don't care about anybody else in this movie besides them. I don't care about the person they're trying to save, which arguably should be the person I care about most, shouldn't it? Should I care about Patrick and Vera more than I care about the person they're trying to save? I don't think so.
Yeah, and it's interesting too on that because legally, I mean, they are trying to save his life, but like there's no doubt that he did what he did. So that's kind of a weird thing too, and you don't really even get much of the case. It's just kind of one of those things where it's like you see the early stages of the courtroom case, which that was actually a pretty funny scene where it was like they asked the attorney to come over to the house and see what they had, and then the next shot is
next shot. I like that.
And then the judge just reacting to her, saying what the not guilty plea is or whatever. And but then you don't really get anything else after that. It's all Vera and Patrick it's all the Warrens, trying to figure out what's going on. So
I feel like it's almost a no-win situation they put themselves in, because if you do more of the courtroom stuff, you just become the exorcism of Emily Rose, right? Which has already done this exact idea and done it fairly well. So if you do too much of that, then you just come off looking like you're that movie. But if you don't do enough of it, you miss the most interesting thing about this case, which is that it was an actual court case,
This is a super fascinating story. Even if you don't like this movie, I highly recommend you look into what all went down, because it is really interesting.
I will say that maybe that is, besides the performance, maybe that's something else I can say that I like about this movie. It intrigued me to want to know more about what really happened. Besides the not glorification, but the extremeness of a movie setting as opposed to like a documentary, I think would be really fascinating to delve into.
Yeah,
for sure.
Do you guys have any other thoughts? Any other stuff you want to kind of bring up about this movie?
I don't know. I don't want to spoil anything. So, non-spoilery, I don't know that I have any more to say. But I mean, really, we've said it over and over. But Farmiga and Wilson make this, the fact that they make it as watchable as they do, a test. I like them. In fact, I was telling my friend yesterday, I like them so much together in these movies that it kind of upsets me that they're with other people in real life. Like I feel like they're cheating on each other in real life. It's also an interesting contrast to if you do any work, if you do any background on what the Warrens actually were. This is very much a fictional version of the Warrens too, which is also interesting. But it's just I don't know. They're one of the. I don't know. I just want them to be together forever, and everything else, whatever. I don't care.
Sure. Andrew, did you have anything else you wanted to mention?
There's, I don't even know if you can call it a post-credit scene, because the credits it just immediately dives right into what I guess you could consider a end credit scene, which interesting. It's actual footage and audio files of what really
I like
happened.
that kind of stuff usually.
I'm getting quotes in here, but I'm in a tiny bubble, so.
Are we did anybody do any research? Are we to believe that's the actual audio recording that they played over the credits?
I didn't look into it.
I didn't look into it either. I meant to, and I forgot to.
They said it was in the credits, so.
Yeah.
But, they also say Fargo's based on a true story, so, they can put anything in a movie.
It's funny. It's funny you talk about how bad the title of this movie is, because there's actually a TV movie that was made in the early 80s based on this. And I was trying to find it. I think it's called Demon Murder Case or something like that. It's like an even worse title.
Yeah. Yeah.
Demon Murder Case this week on ABC. Or
the only other thing I specifically wanted to ask.
Demon Murder Case. Extreme.
This will be my my one last thing, and I kind of put it to you, Jonathan, since you have a wider expanse of knowledge in this genre. I felt like, even as somebody who's not a horror movie person, that I saw so many direct, blatant homages to other horror movies that there's some Exorcist stuff in here that they basically took right off the poster, and I'm just like,
the priest getting out of the taxi.
Yeah,
that was the thing I was about to mention earlier. It's insane. That's like the cover of the that's like the poster basically,
Yeah.
right?
That's what I said. They took it right off the poster.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I just wondered if there were others that I missed. Like when you are paying homage to something else, there's a balance to that, right? Like where you can wink at something, but not have it like, dominate. Like to me, those kind of things, especially that Exorcist thing, and maybe it's just that. Maybe there aren't many others, because again, I'm not as familiar with a lot of stuff. But it was just one of those things where I was like, okay, like hit me over the head with it, like
No, that was ridiculous. I laughed.
When that
happened,
it becomes ridiculous.
There's a parody that Leslie Nielsen's in called Repossessed from like 1990 or something. And I immediately thought about that when I saw that scene. Like that might as well have been Leslie Nielsen. It was ridiculous.
Here's the problem with that right there. Whenever you do a movie like this that you're saying is based on actual events and that this needs to be taken seriously, whenever you introduce something like The Exorcist, whenever you're like referencing other movies, that negates everything you're trying to do with saying that this is a real event. You're like, hey, remember these other movies? Don't forget you're watching a movie.
Well, and it's hard. It's like I actually talked about this on the Behind the Scenes that's coming out this week, where it's really hard to not already think about The Exorcist, because The Exorcist is like the exorcism movie. It's like Jaws. Whenever you see another animal attack movie, you're always going to think about Jaws. And so it's hard enough to not even be thinking about that movie, and then you're just going to blatantly do that. I don't know. That's a weird flex for a movie to have. I don't really understand what they were doing there, and it's not like it's a good shot. I mean, there's nothing about that other than they're clearly just like, hey, remember the Exorcist?
They don't linger on it or anything. It's like,
no.
It's there. You're like, I can see what you did there, and then it's over with.
Can I also mention though? Suspicious Minds plays on this soundtrack while they're in a car. I thought that was hilarious because and that happens in Army of the Dead. I just think that's such a although there's not fellatio going on in The Conjuring.
That's true.
We're clear. But I just thought that was an interesting it's always interesting to see common things in movies in a period of time. And so that's like a weird summer movie thing where we're just going to play Suspicious Minds in car scenes. I hope if Fast and Furious 9 doesn't have one, I'm going to be very upset. Is all I'm saying.
What was the song that was in like 3 different movies the same year? It was in like Logan Lucky and what was it? What's the song in Logan Lucky at the end?
It was a Country Home.
Country Home, it was in like 3 different movies. It's like just all of a sudden every single music director's like, I want the same song.
That Run the Jewels song from a couple of years ago was in a bunch of stuff too, like Book Smart and
West Virginia.
Country Home, man. All the songs.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about Bo Burnham Inside. A new comedy special shot and performed by Bo Burnham alone over the course of the past year, which, in case you didn't know, was a pandemic year. So the special deals a lot with that, a lot with his mental health. And of course, you've got, along with that, Bo Burnham's style of songs and comedy to go along with it. I'm really curious what you guys think. Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay? Andrew's going first this time.
It's crazy how much I love this.
Yeah.
High side, I've loved it.
Yeah. Jonathan.
I don't know. Like I have been thinking about this for 24 hours. There were definitely things I loved about it, but I think I'm just going to have to say okay if I have to give like a honest answer, because I don't know. Like I'm having a hard time with this one.
No, I hear you. I am with Andrew firmly in the loved it category. High side of loved it. Will compete for my favorite movie of the year. Loved it.
Wow.
Like
nice. Yeah. Very nice.
You know what it reminds me a lot
it's
of?
Number one right now.
It reminds me a lot of when we talked about or when I talked about, because I don't think we reviewed it as Sif Pop, but the one-man special that was kind of like magic, but also had meaning behind it. The name of it is slipping my brain right now.
Magic?
The Rulatista. What did he call that special? Anyhow, somebody's in the comments will eventually get it to me. Anyhow, this reminds me of that, in that it's like something that isn't a movie per se, but you get to the end of it and you're like, that's so cinematic. It's so interesting. Yes, thank you, producer Phil. In and of Itself was the name of the special that I'm talking about.
I didn't see that one.
It reminds me that because something like this, it's the Derek Delgadio special In and of Itself. It's like this in that you watch it, at least for me, and you go, okay, that's a funny song. Okay, that's a funny song. And then you watch the entirety of it come together in a way that you're like, oh, I guess it's actually genius. I guess it's actually a piece of art that I'm going to be thinking about for years. Yeah. Like, and when any kind of visual media can do that to me, as you know, if you listen to this podcast, it's just going to rocket up my list because I love it when I continue to think about something long after I've taken it in. So yeah, I'm on the high side. I love this as well. Andrew, I'll let you kind of continue since about some of the things that you loved about it.
Here's, I think, because I connected to this so much. If you cut out, as a lot of people who listen to the show know, a couple years ago, I had to stop doing the show because, I was going through a lot of emotional and mental issues that I've been very open about on the show. If you cut out all the funny songs in this special and you just, isolate on everything he's just talking about himself and what he's dealing with, that's exactly like 100% how I felt and like what I was going through. And it was terrifying. And watching that, I felt like I understood what he was going through. And it was one of those things where like I could also make the connection of, me doing the show, and trying to be funny and stuff like that, like he's doing his songs and stuff and try to be funny just to have some sense of normality. But in the back of his head, he's going through so much. That was so powerful. Icing on the cake, all the hilarity in these songs and stuff. My question to you guys is this a comedy special?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I asked the same question to myself. Is this a comedy special or is this a movie? Is it a film?
It is a comedy special, and I think I think it is, and sure. I think that's part of my problem, and I might just be way too cynical. I don't know, but I believe him. Like, I believe this is stuff he was going through. At the same time, I'm sitting here watching this like really well edited, put together. Like, he's showing us what he wants to show us, and he's editing in a way where it is, and that's fine. It's something that he's presenting to us, right?
Right.
But it's not like, I don't know. It's like Raw would be like if he just sat in that room for an hour and a half and we just saw whatever he did for that hour and a half, right? This is like put together. This is a product.
I think go ahead.
And I don't really, that's what I'm saying. I've been thinking about this because I think that's the part that got me. I will say it was triggering. The suicide stuff is always hard for me. That's not a negative towards it. It just makes it harder for me to watch it, just because of personal stuff in my life. But as someone who also suffers from anxiety and depression and whatnot, I get this. This last couple years has been insane, and for him to put himself out there like that, I totally respect that. But as a comedy special, like the stuff that was supposed to be funny, I laughed maybe half the time. And I think that's where I'm coming down more on the it's okay. Sure. There was stuff though, like where he's like, I loved his jabs at reaction videos and live streaming of him playing a video game.
I felt personally attacked.
For some reason, what was funny to me was, and I don't watch people playing video games, but it just was so funny to me. He kept saying stuff like, "Yeah, hey Devin, yeah, thanks for 3 months," and then go back to.
It was so perfect. Yeah,
but the reaction video killed me. Like that was the one thing where I was just like, "What is going on here?" But yeah, so
it got so meta.
He
Yes.
loves that stuff. I will tell you a little bit of my experience, and I do want to address something you said, Jonathan, before I go into that, because you talked about his performance, and there is an element of this that is clearly intentionally scripted, put together to flow a certain way, to go a certain way. I would go so far as to say even some of the emotional stuff that happens, he may have done a couple takes on. That doesn't bother me, but I also know that he has talked in his other specials about don't ever trust me. Don't I am performing. I am a performer, so for me that makes it more of a film, right? Because he's acting, and to some people want it to be a documentary, and I think that's kind of what you're talking about. This is not a documentary. This is a movie. This is a film. And to me, it doesn't matter how quote unquote real it is. What matters is what I am feeling, what I am experiencing, and what that means to me. And I don't think there's anything. I think there's a secondary part to this that is about honesty. Is he being honest or dishonest in his acting? I think he's being very honest in his acting, even if he did 3 takes to get there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's an honesty there.
I kind of misunderstood the question. I think, no, I agree. This is definitely a movie. I think most comedy specials are, especially if they're presented that way.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, no, I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. I will tell you, my experience with Bo Burnham started with 8th grade. That was the first I had ever experienced Bo Burnham, was writing and directing 8th grade. I thought, who is this amazing new director, first time out, that has this level of insight, this level of ability to have his own voice. There was such a clear, distinct voice in 8th grade in that movie. That was my first experience.
Which is interesting, right? Because he wrote that about an 8th grade girl. So that's really interesting.
Sure.
And as my daughter's not quite that old, but that movie definitely affected me in a lot of ways. Just, seeing her go through her stuff as she's growing up. It seemed very real to life, which is kind of scary, but.
So that is a first experience with somebody that doesn't really tell me a lot about them other than what they show me in that movie. Like, I didn't watch necessarily a lot of interviews with him about that movie. I was just like, who is this director? I think actually he, at the Critics' Choice Awards, I actually said hello to him. I knew who it was, but I didn't I had no point of reference for who he was as a comedian or those kind of things.
I've known him since he was doing YouTube.
This is where I'm going. After that, next thing I knew him from was this year as an actor now in Promising Young Woman. And he's incredible in Promising Young Woman. He's so great. Yes. Their chemistry is one of my favorite things about that movie. His performance, I think, for many people defines whether or not they like the movie or not, is whether or not they buy into kind of what's going on with that character and what happens to that character, which is really interesting in that movie. I loved him again, and then just was kind of like, oh, I'm excited to see what he directs next, what he acts in next. And then this happens. And I'm like, oh, okay. So there's, I knew he was a comedian, I'd heard that. And I was like, oh, so he's a song comedian. He writes clever, meta, funny songs. Yeah. And this weekend, I watched every single one of his specials, including his original Comedy Central Presents 2009, I think, 2010, somewhere in that range. Yeah. When he was 17, 18 years old.
Oh, yeah. He's been doing this since he was a kid.
And then I went back and watched his YouTube videos, watched his, very first YouTube videos. And it was such an incredible journey through, a reverse journey through because I watched them actually literally in reverse order. I literally went backwards in time.
Yeah, and
it was it was such an interesting dematurization of him as a human, which that's not saying something negative, is just saying something normal. When he started, he was 16. He's not going to have the same maturity level and understanding. What he did have from the time he was 16 is his intelligence and is his cleverness and his ability to take something, as well as his willingness to say things you're not supposed to say. He has this, and many will talk about his, but in fact, his first song in this one is kind of about how his stuff hasn't aged well. He addresses it in some ways and says, am I ashamed of these jokes? When he's talking about call me and I'll tell you a joke and all that kind of stuff. I was so impressed with this human being's intellect and his wit. I am now a huge fan of his work, and as when you say that about anyone, you can distinguish things. I wouldn't have done it this way. I wouldn't have said this thing. Like, there's certainly plenty in his old work, believe me, that I look at and I go,
that's every comic, as we're probably going to talk about.
Yes, yeah, and it was.
How'd you know?
So here's the thing. This is what I love. There is something about experiencing that makes me a better human being, because it allows me to think about things that I, in my normal day-to-day life, just don't come into my brain. It allows me to process free speech in an interesting way. It allows me to process why does comedy play on the edges? Why does, and why now are we talking about how comedy can't play on as many edges, and thinking about a polarized culture versus a non-polarized culture, and that the job of comedy is different in those places. The job of comedy is different now than it was 10 years ago. And to think about like all of those things, have those internal conversations, and maybe even external conversations with other friends. And man, when somebody can do that, I am in euphoria. I love thinking about that stuff. And at the end of the day, that's what Inside did for me, is it took me on a journey, and is still taking me on a journey, kind of thinking about that stuff. And that's before you get to, talking about.
Okay, fine. I like it. I'm in like now. I'm not going to get to love, but I'm in like.
No, but that's before. Well, but you said something very important, Jonathan, I think, which is, does the comedy work for you? And that is a valuable conversation to have, because I'm going to over prioritize the cleverness,
for sure,
and somebody else may over prioritize the comedy. And so, yeah, I think that's a valid conversation.
I think he's very funny. I've been watching. It was crazy. At one point, he says he took 5 years off, which sounded insane to me. And I had to go back and look at those Netflix specials, because I've watched those so many times. I didn't realize those were like from 2015 and 2016.
Yeah, Make Happy was 2015. Yeah.
But what you're talking about, he has a song on one of those called Lower Your Expectations. And it's all about, it's really funny. And it's all about, like as a guy and as a girl or as a woman, lowering your expectations when you're looking for the right person.
Yes.
But then what I love about that is at the end of it, he makes I can't remember exactly what he says, but he basically says like, and all of this is coming from a 23-year-old white guy or whatever,
Yeah.
And it's like, that's perfect, right? Because he knows how to play that. We'll talk about this. We talk about the best ever challenge. He knows how to play that line, right? Like he definitely gets into some controversial stuff, but like the best comics, he knows how to stay right there and not, veer too far over. Now there is cringe, just like with any comic, but I think less with him than most. It's been a while since I've watched those specials, but from what I remember, there's also a great YouTube video. I don't know where this took place, but there's a video where he is in a room with like Gary Shandling and Ray Romano and like just these great top comics, and absolutely holding his own with them. Like he's just having a conversation with all these guys. Bill Burr might be there. I can't remember, but if I don't know what that's called, but if you just look up like, him and Ray Romano, you'll probably find it. And it's just, if you want to know how good he is in comparison, that video tells you a ton, so, he's a very talented man.
He's so incredibly talented. The thing that spoke the most to me about his own gifts in his specials, which again, I just watched them all last couple days. He does this right brain, left brain conversation in one of his specials. And it is so true to how like I interact with myself. Like there's this very logical, systematic part of, my brain that wants to do everything like that. And that has to find peace with this artistic, creative, want to be crazy, side of my brain as well, performative side of my brain. And I really identified a lot with that. And the way he envisioned it and performed it was so smart. I had one of those experiences I have when I'm like playing a mobile game or something, and then I watch a YouTube video of somebody who's really good at it, where I'm like, oh, I guess I can quit.
Like a speed run or something like that.
Yeah. I was just like, I'm watching Burnham. I guess I have nothing more to say. He's doing it. Like I'm good.
Yeah.
Like So yeah, Bo Burnham almost canceled Sif Pop. But I decided to come on this week anyway.
And then you put on an episode of According to Jim, and you're like, no, I can be funny. I can totally be funny.
That's right. It's all balanced. It's all balanced.
Yeah.
Andrew, what other thoughts do you have about this special? We haven't heard from you in a second.
White Woman Instagram.
Oh my goodness, that song.
I think that might be my favorite song of the whole special.
Yeah.
Because it's the most like dedicated to being part of a comedy special, or everything else I think ties into the isolation, the whole. Actually, I'm gonna traverse off onto something else because I never do that, you know. There's a moment where it's near the end of this whole thing. I'm not gonna get into too many details because I want people to see it for itself. But there's a moment where he's like going through all of this, and he's pretending that he's talking to like a real, you know, audience, like a you know, a real crowd, and he has a laugh track going and everything, and he's actually starts going off on a bit, like he's telling an actual joke bit that in any other context would actually be kind of funny, but because of the way he kind of led into that whole section, it was so depressing whenever he started telling that this bit, which I don't want to get into, but I remember, like, you know, when in the laugh track in the background really hit home, like how much, like,
it was haunting.
It was haunting because I think it really, you know, comedy, a lot of comics talk about how pain and misery and stuff is really what helps them, you know, with, you know, making jokes and stuff like that. And that behind the curtain shot was the most like brilliant way to visualize that for us audience, what's really going through a comic's head sometimes. And it just blew my mind. But going back to White Woman Instagram, that was the part of the special I thought was the most, you could say, was dedicated to, you know, actually just being funny, you know, and actually making you feel good. Like, oh, okay, I'm okay watching this right now. A lot of other stuff, it had darker undertones to it, but
yeah. The other thing the White Woman Instagram is kind of the epitome of, for another thing I loved about this special, this movie, this film, whatever, is just what an incredible artist he is as a director and as a shot selector, and, you know, lighting, and like that video alone, or that section alone, has probably 100 different setups. Visually, I mean, he's using technology, you know, that projects stuff on the wall, using colors. You know, some of the video is showing him setting up stuff and doing stuff like that. And I just like so much respect for his gift just as a visual storyteller through this as well. So yeah,
this very much reminds me of. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm also curious. He makes a comment about how, like, he talks about if this ends, like if I'm done, you know, then what am I going to do? And I wonder, I feel like there probably was a lot of truth in that, but I wonder if that had something to do with, like, he just shot so much footage just because he was determined just to keep going, you know, to have something, you know, something to do every day.
And it's clear by the special itself that he's editing while he's doing it, because he's including stuff of his editing in the edit. So you know that like he's editing as he goes. You know, you mentioned that what do I do when I'm done thing, and it made me realize the Make Happy, I think it's the Make Happy special in 2015.
The one before this, I think.
Ends in that room. It ends in that room.
Oh yeah.
With him playing a song and then walking out and greeting a woman and child. And at the time, I didn't know if that was a commentary, like if that's his life partner and their child, or if that was just like a, you know, like actors, and that he was making a point about, you know, stuff that's important and stuff that's not important, because that's kind of what the song was about. Like, he's just so like this meta brilliance, like, has been his thing from the beginning. It's just this gave him more opportunity, I think, to really live in it and be more vulnerable with it in that way. So
he needs to get better at wire placement, though. There were chords, just going everywhere. It was driving me nuts.
I laughed so hard when he knocked over the camera. And it just because I've been there. I've been there.
Yeah.
In many of those cases, like, when I would record YouTube videos for reviews and those kind of things, the feeling of, is the picture right? How's the framing? How's it look? How's the lighting? Like, man, I've been there. And then I thought, like, would it bother you if you knew that was acting? Like, if he set that cord up to knock that camera over and then pretend like he almost, busted his camera or whatever. And that's when I started thinking about the whole performance aspect and what makes it valuable and what makes it real, which is something he talks about in the special. And I'm just like, it's so deep and layered in, like, I really love this special.
This special made me think he is becoming more Charlie Kaufman than I thought he actually was ever going to become.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that. Sure.
Yeah, I saw a lot of Charlie Kaufman in this one. Not Andy Kaufman, Charlie Kaufman.
Well,
I hope he's happy though.
Well, maybe a little bit. Actually, maybe a little bit of Andy Kaufman too. So.
I hope he's able to get back out and actually, do some shows and stuff though, which he said he was ready to do. That was like, I mean, I kind of saw that coming when he started talking about it, but he obviously was going to do that at the beginning of 2020, and then all this happened.
It's it is somebody else who watched it said to me, I just kept thinking about Robin Williams. And there is a sadness to a lot of genius like this when you start to think of how many performative geniuses who have struggled so much with that right brain, left brain battle and with performing and wanting applause and those kind of things. And I'm with you, Jonathan. I really do hope he's okay at the end of the day. Now, and I hope he is.
Robin Williams obviously had a lot, but he actually had a physical issue, right? Like he was sick, like he had a disease. I
have not studied it, so I hesitate to say, but I do remember hearing
his daughter or his wife or somebody came out and said that. I can't remember what it was. So I probably shouldn't have even brought it up because I can't back it up.
Talk about Andy Kaufman. Jim Carrey's another one who I think about, who has this performative gene that is just like, I'm going to, be manic and crazy and, do amazing, clever stuff, and then has to figure out who he really is as a human being. And he's gone through like a huge philosophical thing over the last decade or so and trying to figure that stuff out. And the Kaufman experience was kind of a turning point for him.
It was a catalyst.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I'm with you, Jonathan. I hope he's doing okay. And I hope enough of this was performative that he's doing even better than it appears he's doing in this, if that makes any sense.
You kind of do hope a lot of it is an act, right? I mean, that's what that's what you want it to be,
or at least turned up a little bit. At the same time, that's not to say there's any disrespect if that's, like the vulnerability is there either way. That's not a diss either way.
Absolutely not.
For his own mental health, I hope it is dialed up a little bit.
Yeah. And for me, I'm not too far off, oddly enough, from where you guys are. I think just for me, like I said, technically, like some of the comedy just didn't work for me. That sexting song was a great example of something. While I can respect like the lyric wordplay and stuff, it just didn't hit me for whatever reason. And then also just my own personal stuff. Like it was hard for me to watch parts of it. And that does factor in, I think, to your overall view of it. But I can also see Andrew's perspective, where that was, it's also kind of comforting in a way. It's, you're not alone. And just seeing somebody getting something like that out there, just in the same way, which by the way, Andrew, I've listened to a lot of what you've had to say over the years, and I admire the hell out of you for that, by the way.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah. And, but yeah, so that's just kind of where I'm at with it. That's why I kind of lean more in the okay, but no, I totally get it. I think this is going to be a great experience for a lot of people. It's very unique. Yeah. So it's very cool.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to move on. I will say, it's amazing. I talked about this whole thing and my love of Bo Burnham and never once mentioned that he may be the most incredible wordplay person I've ever seen. Like his wordplay is God level.
He's up there with insane. Like Weird Al, right?
Yeah, totally. I think he's beyond Weird Al.
I think so too. I mean, but And I mean, I know Weird Al's a little broader, but Weird Al is very good with,
Yes,
you know,
wordplay and those kind of things. Yeah. Yep. All right. Let's move into the best ever challenge. Before we do, though, however, I do want to talk about our SIF Pop members and thank them personally for being such incredible people and supporting what goes on here. We actually have 3 new members since last week. Huge thank you to Drew, to Jacob, and to Randy, all joining at $5 a month. That $5 a month level is the bonus podcast level. So when you hear us talk about, hey, we recorded a bonus podcast this week. By the way, this week, Andrew talked about his thoughts on Cruella since he wasn't here last week. And we also discussed our movies back and what does that mean. If you want to hear that conversation, that's the $5 level and above at patreon.com/SIFPop. Also, no commercials in your own personal podcast feed as a SIFPop member. And then there's some other fun stuff. This week is our first, we call them family meetings. It's our first family meeting in a long time. And we're reinstating those for the $10 a month level and up. So excited to hang out with you guys and chat whatever this week during the family meeting. So if you're interested in finding all that stuff out, it's all at patreon.com/siftpop. And thank you for even considering it. And thank you to those who have pulled the trigger and have joined us as members. We appreciate you.
So is it an actual family meeting? Like you fight?
Yes.
And you bring up really embarrassing stuff. And
it's funny. It comes from the tier is called the SIF Pop family, I think, because originally, you may not know this. This is a little bit of history. SIF Pop was your movie friend, which was my personal reviews and those kind of things. And yourmoviefriend.com now goes to sifpop.com. So the tiers were friend, family, confidant, that kind of thing. And so the family meetings came from the family.
Very
tier.
cool.
So, yeah. All right, best ever challenge this week. We're doing best ever stand-up specials. I will say, obviously, this is a huge category. And for me, not one that I have really seen, a lot of the ones that a lot of people would talk about. So I thought we'll probably maybe have some different ones this week. But if you do have something higher than somebody else has it, feel free to trump it and we'll talk about it when it is your turn.
It was hard not to cheat on this and be like, I have 3 ties for 4 because they all go together.
I'm sure we'll each have a couple honorable mentions at the end, but we'll start with number 5.
Aaron,
work our way up. You want me to go first?
Yeah.
I'm really curious what yours are. I have to be honest.
Okay, this is the most recent one for me at number 5. I just fell in love with this comedian, and I really do enjoy his stuff. He's from your neck of the woods, Jonathan. I have Nate Bargatze's Tennessee Kid.
Oh, love Nate Bargatze.
As my number 5.
Yeah.
I remember he kind of had his moment, at least in my life, about a year ago. And I think it was during the pandemic, people were starting to pick up on some of his older stuff. And then the Tennessee Kid was that one where it was like, oh, okay, who is this guy? He's so hilarious. It was one of those moments where I was just laughing for an entire, 60, 90 minutes, whatever it is. And I just had so much fun. And he mentions a couple stories in this special from his previous Netflix special, which was only a half-hour one. It was in their, series or whatever. And so I had to go back and watch those, and then everything was even better. And then since then, he's released another special during pandemic, that, took place outside, I think at Universal Studios, and was also really, really funny. So love Nate Bargatze. This is his favorite for me, or this is my favorite of him. And so the Tennessee Kid is my number 5.
I've got to watch this. He was on that Netflix special you're talking about. Wasn't it there was episodes? It was 5 different comics.
Yes.
That's the first time I saw him and found out he was from here. And he's hilarious, man. Yeah, he's great.
Andrew, what do you got at number 5?
I'm going to go with the top part. It's the 2006 John Mulaney or 2009 John Mulaney special.
Nice.
This was, I think, one of his first actual stand-up specials, and it's easily my favorite because while I love every single one of John Mulaney's stand-up specials, this is the most that's, I guess you could say, accessible, because I think as he's progressed as a comedian, a lot of his comedy has been referential, especially around New York City. You know, this is more a personal look at things, and there's a bit in here called the Salt and Pepper Diner, where him and his friend play What's New Pussycat, the Tom Jones song, on a jukebox 7 times in a row. They just went into a little diner and they just put in $5 worth of quarters and stuff into a jukebox, and just over and over again they just played What's New Pussycat just to watch how everybody in the diner would react. And it's one of the funniest bits ever. It's great.
Did you have any John Mulaney on your list, Jonathan?
I don't. And this is what you were talking about. This is such a wide-ranging subject. Yeah. I forgot about John Mulaney. So I love John Mulaney, though.
In my honorable mentions, I had Kid Gorgeous.
They're all great. They're all
they're all great. Is that the Horse in the Hospital one? Is Kid Gorgeous the Horse in the Hospital one, or is that more recent than that? I can't remember. But
Kid Gorgeous is his newest, or Horse in the Hospital is from his newest one. So I don't know what.
Right. Yeah. I love Mulaney, and Kid Gorgeous was the one I remember thinking I saw of him first. So I had that in my honorable mentions. But
yeah.
What do you got at number 5, Jonathan?
I guess, I mean, I don't know if it's a cheat because it is multiple comics, but it's a movie. It's the original Kings of Comedy, which was Spike Lee directed. Well, he shot one of the shows. This was a tour that Bernie Mac, Steve Harvey, D.L. Hughley, and Cedric the Entertainer did back around this time period, I guess late 90s, early aughts. Bernie Mac, another comic we lost way too early. Cancer, I believe. I can't remember. But he died years ago, and it was sad. But anyways, this is just one I've rewatched several times. I actually almost had an opportunity to see them. They actually came through Nashville, and I was not able to go. I think I was out of town or something. And I've always, especially since Bernie Mac's no longer with us, that's one of those I wish I had been there kind of moments, you know. But this is, I believe, all of this is one show. It's in Charlotte. I think they switched off occasionally, but Steve Harvey is the MC of this one, where he's doing the in-between parts and introducing everybody. And he's amazing, like maybe the best MC ever in a comedy show. If you've ever been to one, he's got the Ray Carruth bit and the church fund bit, and then does some great audience interaction. Cedric and D.L. Hughley are very, very funny. I mean, they're obviously very professional guys, are really, kind of in their prime at this point. The 25 minutes of Bernie Mac, though, is just one of the, from start to finish, just one of the most amazing sets I've ever seen. It's just the Bernie Mac show, for those of you who remember, where it was about him and his wife took in, I believe it's his sister's kids. That was something that he did in real life. And this set is all about him taking those kids in and how that has changed his life. Probably the one of the memorable things from that, though, some people may know, is I Want My Milk and Cookies. But it's so funny. If for some reason, if you haven't seen this, I'm sure it's easily available. And like I said, Spike Lee directed it, which is really cool. Spike Lee apparently is very good at this with these live shows. He did the David Byrne thing from this past year, American Utopia.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, very good. So Lee clearly has a talent for doing these, although he's got geniuses, just doing what they're doing. But yeah, this has always been a favorite of mine. So I didn't know how not to put it on the list somewhere.
Nice. Yeah, you mentioned where to watch stuff. I haven't done a great job this episode. I've been trying to do better, but I will tell you, just to kind of go back in time just a second. Bo Burnham Inside is on Netflix. I don't know if we specifically said that. Conjuring Devil Made Me Do It is in theaters and on HBOmax if you want to see that. Also, Bo Burnham's previous comedy special, previous 2 are on Netflix as well, which is Make Happy and What, and then the 2 before that are on Paramount Plus. So in case you're looking for those,
well, an original Kings of Comedy is Prime Video, Paramount Plus, and Pluto TV. So there's actually multiple ways to check that baby out.
All mine are CDs.
Have either of you seen original Kings of Comedy?
I
really should. I really should. Yeah. Oh, by the way, Aaron, it is Kid Gorgeous at Radio City Hall.
Okay.
For the John Mulaney, which is also the J.J. Bittenbinder Street Smarts stand-up special.
Right.
Too.
Yes. Yeah.
Street Smart.
My number four is Birbiglia. Mike Birbiglia, the new one, is my favorite of his, which I think is 2 comedy specials ago. I really like Birbiglia. I like how he plays with the form. This one especially does some really. He's a comedian because he makes you laugh, but he's also kind of almost more a storyteller than a comedian, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
He's very much about taking you on a journey, telling you a story. He does some really interesting things in this one with the form, props, different things that you might not be expecting. But it's just funny story observation after funny story observation, and it all just flows to a beautiful point, a beautiful message about humanity, what it means to be human. I really like Birbiglia, and this is my favorite of his. So it's called The New One. It is on Netflix.
I don't know that I've seen one of his stand-up specials. I've seen his
so
films, the films that he's been involved with. I've watched, but
The New One is really good. I would also recommend My Secret Public Journal and To Drink Mike. I think are my 2 favorite.
Yeah,
I love Birbiglia.
I'm gonna be watching some stand-up tonight, man. It's gonna be stand-up Sunday. Nothing wrong with that.
No, hey, that's a good night spent.
Number 4, Andrew.
Number 4, I have the 2006 These Are Jokes by Dimitri Martin.
Yes.
Oh, Dimitri Martin. I forgot about him too.
I had that in my honorable mention as well, although I think I had the Overthinker of his that I like the most.
He's
so
amazing.
What I'm what I'm noticing about my list as I go up it, I'm realizing that every single one of these comics that I've listed is completely different from any other on the list, and I think it's like I picked the top, genre of each, like subgenre of each of their stand-up. So I think Dimitri Martin, like this one for me, is like the best dry humor, which I think
he's so good.
He is the master when it comes to dry humor. And he also is insanely talented because he will play multiple instruments at the same time while telling these jokes. Like, I think this one here, These Are Jokes, is the one where he has like a Will Forte and a couple other people come up on stage to like help him like do songs and stuff. And if Mitch Hedberg wasn't really into drugs, I think that he would very much be like an earlier Dimitri Martin,
Yep.
They're just both very, very dry. Not saying that I don't love Mitch Hedberg because I think he's brilliant. Yeah. Miss that guy.
Might be more to come on him later. It's possible.
It's quite possible.
It's quite possible. We're going to get some more Mitch Hedberg. All right. So now it is
Jonathan's number 4.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, and real quick, Bernie Mac died in 2008. Complications to pneumonia is how he unfortunately passed away.
Didn't he pass away like right before Transformers came out? Like that was the last movie he did.
Yeah,
or something?
it was 2008. So yeah, that would have been, I think, right before it came out. Yeah. So my number 4 though is the far and away the most current one. This is a 2020 special. And this is Taylor Tomlinson, who is just I can't remember. I think I saw her like on Conan or something randomly, which is weird because I don't watch a lot of talk shows. But I think I just randomly saw it and I was like, God, she just struck me immediately. And this is, I believe, her only special. She's very young. She's I think even younger than Burnham. She's, I believe, 27. I looked it up, which is interesting because she's like 20 years younger than me almost. And I find her.
Goodness. I'm just remembering the turning 30 moment from the Burnham special.
Oh, that's right. So she is younger than him. But even though there's a 20-year age gap, like she's so relatable. Like it's very. I don't know what it is, but it's just like she's very relatable in that way. And she just has a delivery that is very unique from what I've heard. I'm sure serious stand-up comic experts will probably be like, well, she actually takes after blah, blah, blah. But for me, it's just a very interesting delivery. And I don't know, out of current comics, she has probably the best timing, in my opinion. Just the way she just nails a joke. Is just so awesome. And she also has this is I don't know if I don't know, this just kills me every time, but she has the line, love is blind, but Lust is Helen Keller. And so if you find that funny, you will love Taylor Tomlinson. No, she's great.
Is it a Netflix special or?
It is. It's called Quarter Life Crisis. As far as I know, it's her only special. You can see her like on YouTube. She's done a lot of talk show appearances and stuff. But yeah,
that is a brilliant line. I love that.
That is a brilliant line.
Oh,
I
can't.
Really smart. Really smart.
Genius.
All right, my number
Aaron.
3.
Yeah.
I have Hannah Gadsby here at number 3 with Nanette. Man, Nanette kind of destroyed me. I laughed a lot, but you talk about vulnerability. The vulnerability that they're going through in this is just, I was really amazed at the deconstruction of comedy that's going on here, where there's this element of, I hate comedy because of this, and yet I'm standing up here doing comedy and trying to undermine this at the same time as do it. There's a lot of that actually in the Bo Burnham special, where it's like, there's a hypocrisy to what I'm doing, especially based on what I'm saying. And man, this was one of those first comedy specials where I was like, oh, you can do this. And so, yeah, I'd highly recommend, Hannah Gadsby.
Nice.
This was an honorable mention for me. It's brilliant.
It really is brilliant. Andrew, number 3.
I've also noticed that my list, as it gets further down and closer to number 1, these specials get progressively older. So, coming in at 2004, I Walked on the Moon by Brian Regan.
Ah, yes, Mr. Regan.
Oh my goodness. I just love Brian Regan so much, and I think this is the epitome of like perfection. That whole bit of I Walked on the Moon, the Me Monster. I think this is also the Pop-Tart special, where he talks about how complicated it is. Like, why do you need instructions on a Pop-Tart package to like how to cook a Pop-Tart? It should just say, step 1, toast the Pop-Tart. Go ahead, toast it. You still reading this? Because he is one of those energetic comedians. He brings a lot of, passion and everything to what he does. But also, I think that out of every single comic on the planet, nobody has better timing for a joke than Brian Regan. I think his timing is insane. It's unmatched. It really is. He knows exactly how and when and what tone and pitch to say every single word to make a joke land exactly like it needs to. He is the master.
Is this the special that has the naming of the walkie-talkies in it? That's one of his jokes that I always...
the whammy kablam and the Rudy Tooty aim and shooty.
I came to him kind of late.
Aim and shooty.
Yeah. I don't know why. He always... I can't explain what it was, but he never really attracted me. Like, I just never wanted to watch one of his specials. But then Patton Oswalt on one of... Yeah, Patton on one of his specials, which almost made my list too. I can't remember the exact title. Werewolves is in the title, though. I know that. But he talks about like the comics that inspire him, and Regan was one of the ones he mentioned. And so I immediately went out and I was like, oh yeah, I can't believe I've missed this guy. Like this he's amazing. Yeah. I agree with you on the timing, by the way.
Yeah.
He's so good.
Good choice. That's
my number 3.
Jonathan, what's your number 3?
Mitch Hedberg. We'll talk about Mitch Hedberg now.
Hey.
So this was the only special of his I think may even exist because he died.
I think you're right. And instead of saying Trump, I will just tell you I have this at number 2. So it's the next thing we're going to talk about.
He has 2 specials.
But I'm talking about his Comedy Central stand-up.
Yeah, me too. I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the one I'm talking about.
Which one is that? Okay. 2003.
He has. Then there's another one that you guys may not know about. He has. One is called Mitch Altogether, and then the other one's called Strategic Grill Locations.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, but those are recordings, right? Those aren't. He didn't do like video specials of those, did he?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
I know for what is it? Oh, maybe he didn't do for one of them. Maybe like one of the titles is actually the Comedy Central special that I just have I know by a different name. So,
Mhm.
but
Yeah,
regardless, go ahead.
Oh
Yeah.
no, you're
Yeah.
fine. Mitch Hedberg is also, I will say, he's the comic I've seen the most live. I think I got to see him like 3 or 4 times. I think I saw him
that's
3
so
times.
cool.
Yeah,
That's lucky.
and he's my wife's probably her favorite comic, actually, or was. Like I
might
said,
be mine.
lost way too young.
Yeah.
Died of a drug overdose. But yeah, this special is amazing, and also
I'm not laughing that he died. I'm just remembering jokes. I gotta
no,
be
No,
I
that's the thing with
understand.
Hedberg is like you just start remembering all these jokes, and his delivery is so great. It's so unique.
We saw him in Nashville, and he just said this one random thing that this isn't part of this special, but it was just one of those amazing things because it was just so off guard, and he just caught us off guard with it. He's like, by the way, he's like, I'm really excited about this show ending because I've got a pack of lightsabers in my pocket, and Apple and like something Apple is next, something like that. It was just so, yeah. He had this like, I guess he's a stoner comic, but like he's Stephen Wright. Yeah, Stephen Wright would probably be like the closest comparison.
And
but
Dimitri Martin, yeah,
and Dimitri Martin, but he's very different than Stephen Wright. Stephen Wright to me was a lot more. Stephen Wright's funny. Stephen Wright had some really funny stuff, but he's a little more broad, kind of like we were talking about Weird Al versus Bo Burnham. Mitch Hedberg it just feels more relatable. I don't know what it is, and you can actually go on YouTube and see the uncut act of this Comedy Central special, which is amazing because I can't remember what they showed on Comedy Central, but like at the end of it, the audience is not really that into it, or they're kind of, it's a little off, but then he nails a joke at the end. And so then he decides to restart the set. And it is just one of the most it's just such a real moment that you just don't, you don't always see in these things. And for that, it's always stood out as one of my favorite specials.
It's so great. Hedberg is so great.
Sour apple was the flavor.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He was not afraid to tell a bad joke.
No.
He wasn't afraid if a joke didn't land. He would laugh it off and he would just move right on. And that was something in his specials, he never cut him out. Like if a joke didn't land, he was like, it's fine. And then the next thing would be the funniest thing you'd ever heard. Like I just remember he walked out. I don't remember which special. It might be this one. He just walked out and he goes, "Dogs are forever in the push-up position." And it killed me. I remember laughing for hours after he said dogs are forever in the push-up position.
The one my wife and I always quote is the DoubleTree Hotel thing where they're like having the meeting,
I know there are
and the
two
one
trees
guy's like,
involved.
he's like Tree Hotel. No, that's terrible. DoubleTree Hotel.
Hell
Meeting
yeah.
adjourned.
Meeting adjourned.
I was holding that for quadruple tree. We're almost there.
Rice are wonderful for when you're hungry and you want 1,000 of something.
Did you have anything else to say, Aaron? Though I didn't want to take all your
just other than just repeating Mitch Hedberg jokes for the next half hour.
I'm
probably
good
not.
with that.
Go around. There is no door on my side. I don't know if you have a doorknob over there.
But there is, like not a lot of comics do this anymore, right? Just tell joke after joke, like you know that straight, and he was just the master at it. Like
he was so good.
Yeah,
that whole club sandwich routine. Like I just he's so
you
great.
Want to start a club?
Yeah, I think he is my favorite comedian.
That's so cool. I would if you had given me 30 guesses on who your favorite comedian is, I never would.
No, I would
Mitch
never
Hedberg.
have picked Mitch Hedberg for you. Honestly, I would have picked something like Brian Regan to be your favorite.
Yeah, no, Regan's great.
Yeah,
I love Regan, but there's just something about great, clever joke construction that it's it's always going to be.
Well, that does make sense now that I think about it. Like that is more your style, so that does actually make sense. All
right, so I think that brings us to your number 2, Andrew.
Yep, this is where I have the 2000 special, "Killing 'Em Softly," Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, that was in my honorable mentions.
Yeah, this was my introduction to Dave Chappelle. Even before I don't know when Chappelle shows started, but I remember going over to my friend Maddox's house and he said, "I got this new CD of this guy you're gonna love. I made you a copy because that's how we transmitted data and entertainment. Back then, you made copies of CDs. And I remember listening to it, and I'm like, who is this guy? He is destroying yes, his jokes are funny. I mean, funny is an understatement, I should say. But the way the audience reacted to his jokes was so infectious to you as a listener that you just got immersed. Like, I want to be at this club that he is performing at right now. It looks like I can feel the love and just the excitement of everybody in the audience right now. I'm pretty sure this is the one where he buys weed from a baby. I think this is the special where he talks about
that sounds right.
going to the projects and buying weed from a baby. One of the funniest bits ever. Yeah.
Good choice.
I mean,
Jonathan,
it's Dave Chappelle. What can I say that everybody else on the planet hasn't said already?
No, it's great. I remember this special very well.
He's still killing it.
Yeah.
Is he the GOAT?
Yeah.
Is he the GOAT?
Boy, man, we don't want to have that. I mean, if we want to have the show last another hour, we could have this conversation.
Is he on the Rushmore?
Yeah, I don't know, probably, but this is a very deep conversation.
It's a tough conversation because you're comparing older comics to. I mean, because it's like, where do you put somebody like Don Rickles? You know, like
or Bob Newhart, or Eddie Bruce, or
Eddie Bruce, But I said Eddie Bruce. I don't know. Lenny Bruce. It was Lenny. It was Lenny's brother. He was almost just as funny as Lenny.
Almost.
Yeah.
Jonathan, what do you got at number 2?
So this is from 1996, and it's George Carlin back in town. This was actually his 9th HBO special when I went in and did research. I think a lot of people with Carlin would have picked Carnegie Hall, but this was this was the year I turned 20. So this was I didn't really get Carlin as a kid, because he's definitely more.
I don't think you're supposed to.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So this was really the first time I watched his new special and was just like, I'm with you, I totally get it. And Carlin it's almost like a pulpit kind of thing, right? He's up there just giving his opinions on things, but he's also making these amazing jokes. I mean, this opens with 15 minutes about abortion, and then it goes into capital punishment. And it is both hilarious and super informative. He's saying the things that I wish I could say, right? But if I said it, it would be offensive or it would come off because I wouldn't word it the way he would, right?
Yeah.
And so this was the one of his that I just watched the most because this was really the first time I really felt like I got him. And he's definitely up there in that conversation.
Oh, Carlin's on Mount Rushmore for sure.
Yeah. But a very different type of comedian than I think the ones we've discussed. And not really a comedian that exists anymore. I mean, Dennis Miller, who I'm not a huge fan of, but he was in this kind of probably vein. People like that. You don't really get this. Huh?
I never got into Miller. I never liked his face.
Well, and it's just I felt like he was just using big words to use big words. Like, I'm smarter than you. It was that kind of,
It. He wanted to make you feel lesser than in his specials.
And then when you get older, you start thinking about the words he's using. I don't think you did that correctly. Whole other conversation. But I'm just saying, but just that type of comic, that kind of just hot topic where it was almost like you were getting a lecture. That doesn't really exist anymore. And it probably shouldn't. I mean, things evolve for reasons, but going back and watching him, it feels just as fresh as it did then. It's such a great hour to spend if you're interested. So yeah, George Carlin back in town.
Nice. Time for our number ones.
Yep. What you got?
My number 1 is probably the most impressed I've been with a comedian in the history of watching stand-up specials until
that would make sense.
Until Bo Burnham
until the last 2 days.
Here's a question, Aaron. Before you get into it, just real quick, would Inside make this top 5 list for you?
Yes. Currently, and maybe that's a little recency bias. It would be in that number 3 spot probably for me. I can't see it upending Mitch Hedberg or this one yet. But who knows? In time, it may continue to live with me. This one has lived with me.
Is it Carrot Top? It's Carrot Top.
It's Carrot Top. It is Carrot Top. No, it is James. It is James A. Caster, his repertoire series. You can check this out on Netflix.
I don't think I've heard of this person.
Is he the kid with the whiteboard and the PowerPoint and stuff like that?
He does use some whiteboard and some different things.
I do recognize him. I guess I didn't know his name. I see the picture now.
So James A. Caster did a series of 4 specials called Repertoire. They're basically like 4 episodes of the same special, but they're with 4 different audiences. They are called Recognize, Represent, Reset, and Recap. And I will just say this is one of those comedy specials where I actually have to be careful of spoilers. So that's interesting.
That is interesting.
Because the way that he programs these 4 specials is so brilliant. I've never seen anything like it in my life. I laughed a lot through these specials. I think his observation and his wit is hilarious. I know he's from the UK somewhere. I believe England, although I could be wrong about that. It could actually be, Wales, as far as I know. But I have difficulty with accents sometimes. But he is brilliant in this. I would just recommend, if you want to laugh, put on Recognize, watch it. I think that's enough that you'll want to watch the other 3. And if you do, you will get to the end of Recap and you will have your mind blown. At least I did. So
I'm checking this out.
So there you go.
It's on Netflix, it looks like.
It is on Netflix. Yep, all 4 on Netflix. Recognize, Represent, Reset, and Recap. It came out about 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago. So
are they each an hour, or?
I remember them being somewhere in that range, like 40 minutes.
So it's like 4 episodes, basically. Very cool.
It's like 4 episodes of a TV show. If you want to look at it lengthwise. So yeah, that's my favorite comedy special of all time. What about you, Andrew?
I know Phil's laughing right now.
It's Carrot Top, isn't it?
This is going to end up being an insanely long discussion. I'm just warning you guys right now.
Okay.
This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, this is great.
My number 1 funniest stand-up I have ever seen in my entire life is the 1983 Himself by Bill Cosby.
Yeah. I have it in my honorable mentions. We don't have to spend a lot of time talking about it. Like there is ability to be grown up enough to put things in their proper context. And, there's certainly a lot of baggage that comes with a Bill Cosby conversation that we don't have to get on into. That is not our responsibility. I get, what we're talking about here is, the context with which we saw something the first time we saw it. Now, if I watched it now, maybe that baggage has an impact on my enjoyment of it. But when I watched it then, I am 100% with you.
Yes.
It is hilarious, and he changed the form. He really did. Like, his conversational style was, ground. I'm sorry, I'll let you talk, Andrew. I just wanted to say you're not responsible for having to have that baggage conversation. That's
real quick, though,
you.
Did you say this was 1983?
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's a good year.
Yeah,
it is.
I'm just Eddie Murphy's Delirious came out that year too. That's the only reason that made me think about.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
No.
Wow. Yeah, and I think he was wearing a red suit in this too. So maybe 83 was just a year of red. But I think that obviously, I think this is the funniest stand-up of all time. I cried. I laughed so hard the first time I saw it. Yes. We're not going to have the whole discussion like Aaron said. But it did, as I was making this list, I do want to preface, I want to talk, say my piece just real quick. That I was wondering, can I separate, what Bill Cosby is from this special? Because does what he did take away from the fact I think this is the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life? And yeah, I don't know. It's a conversation I'd have to have with myself that I don't have time to do. But
I think I don't know is a fine answer. That's a fine answer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But going into this special by itself, he has a bit where he is making chocolate cake, or where he is giving out chocolate cake for breakfast.
Yeah.
That might be
great. Give us the chocolate cake.
Yeah. And then his wife coming down. Yeah, it's great. But hands down, the funniest stand-up bit I've ever seen in my entire life is in this, and it's the different types of drunk. The wino drunk and how they walk and how they talk, the vodkas, the beers, and how they talk and how you get the beer gut and stuff like that. His descriptive ability whenever he was talking about, you know, different levels of drunk and stuff like that, and, you know, throwing up in the bathroom and like swearing up to the toilet bowl that you're never going to drink again, you know, and stuff like that. It's the funniest bit I've ever heard in my entire life. It's perfect. So, yeah. Good thing I don't have social media and I don't have to worry about people sending me a whole bunch of
I don't think you'd have to worry about it.
And stuff like that.
Was this is the one too where he talks about going to the dentist, right? He's got like that whole
Yeah,
thing where he's got the floss,
yeah,
the drool, yeah.
Yeah.
My bottom.
I watched this a lot.
My bottom be livid. My bottom be livid's on fire. My bottom be livid.
Because
my bottom livid.
This was on HBO constantly back in the day, you know. So
I actually have this. Well, I don't have anymore, but growing up, I had this LP.
Nice.
That I would listen to. So yeah.
I'm glad we got to talk about something from back then, though, because there's a lot of just, you know, I think a lot of people are going to be like, why didn't you talk about Richard Pryor, or, you know, Eddie Murphy, that kind of thing. So that's at least we got something. Well,
you know, and if we talk about Eddie Murphy Raw, we also have to have this conversation. You know what I mean? Like there is a lot about. I mean, it's a different conversation because one is a conversation about the content of comedy, the other is a conversation about the character of a human being. Yeah, those are very different conversations. I didn't mean to say they are the same. I just mean there is depth. There is depth to having conversation about any content produced by humans, and that's, you know.
And the other thing about Bill Cosby himself is that he's just, it's so clean, and that is rare, right? I mean, that's just most stand-up comedy, at least most stand-up comedy we talk about, is full of like nothing. And I'm not going to sit here and I'm not saying I don't care about cursing and stuff, but I'm just saying like it's full of being vulgar and stuff like that.
There's few and far
boundary pushing.
Yeah, boundary pushing. I mean, this almost feels like, I'm sorry.
We talked about Brian Regan. He's
that's true.
One of the few. And I know we joked about Jeff Foxworthy, but you know, he's probably, I think he's sold more comedy special CDs than anybody else, and he did it without ever saying a swear word.
I like Foxworthy. I don't like the "you might be a redneck" stuff, but like just his general stand up is quite funny. A lot of the time. But
if you grew up in the Ozarks, you had to be. You had to have at least 3 Jeff Foxworthy tapes, cassettes. So,
all right, I think we're ready for your number one, Jonathan. What do you got?
I'm sticking in 1996. 1996 apparently was also a good year for stand-up comedy, and that is Chris Rock, Bring the Pain. Chris Rock is just I don't know if he's my favorite stand-up comic, but he's definitely up there. I mean, I think he's, to me, what you were talking about, you know, like Dave Chappelle being to you. And I think they're kind of similar. They definitely came from around the same era, and especially around, you know, Def Comedy Jam and stuff like that was going on at this time, which I watched constantly. But Chris Rock kind of feels like the Def Comedy Jam comic that I don't know, is a little high, like it's kind of more at the top, I guess, whatever that means. But he's so funny, and he's had several specials. Bigger and Blacker, I believe, was the one before this that was really funny. But this also came out in 96. I'm 20. I watched this on, I think, New Year's Eve. I don't know if that's when it premiered, but I'm pretty sure that's when I remember watching it. And this is one of those where I just could not stop laughing. This now might be most well known for the Office episode, which we actually send on TV Sends, where that's Michael true. Scott gets in trouble for reenacting a bit about, I'll just say, about the media. From this, that's probably what this one's most known for. But this also has a lot of great bits. The HBO prison special bit, the I prefer syrup. I'll leave that at that. But that is a great bit. The O.J. Simpson trial, he has a whole great thing on that. And I've been looking in the mailbox every day for my OJ prize. It's amazing. Like from just beginning to end, it just absolutely slays me. And 25 years later, it still kills me. I just recently rewatched this a few months ago, and it's so good. So yeah, I can't not have that at the top of my list. But
nice. There you go. And we know we'll talk about a couple of honorable mentions here, but we know there will be people we miss. There are so many great stand-up comedians doing great work. You know, it would almost be a disservice to even start just listing names. So we'll just go with our honorable mentions that we have down. Yeah. I will start with probably my favorite comedian that wasn't mentioned, which is Gaffigan. I really like.
I was just going to mention
Gaffigan, man. That Hot Pockets. Oh god, he's so funny.
Yeah. Mr. Universe is probably my favorite special of his, but they're all great. That whole the whole bit of I don't think he's talking about us. Like the whole bit of imitating a member of the audience is just it's genius, and it just works so well. So yeah, I wanted to mention Gaffigan, and then I would also just mention Bill Burr as well. I really enjoyed some of his stuff. Sorry You Feel That Way is probably my favorite special of his.
Yeah. Bill Burr's another one of those guys like Carlin that he might be the closest to Carlin that we have now, where he's not as much like on the like lecture kind of thing, but he says things that I wish I could get them across the way he says them, because it's amazing. Sure. And he's not afraid. Like, and he never quite. I'm sure there are moments that people could point out, but for me personally, he rarely crosses that line into cringe.
Right.
It's right there. I mean, it's close as hell, but he's amazing.
Andrew, did you have any other honorable mentions you wanted to mention?
Yeah, I'll throw out a couple. I didn't really do any like popular comedians like right now, so I'm going to throw out Tom Segura. I think Tom Segura is absolutely hilarious. His bikes bit is, it kills. A comedian that I don't think is really well known, but I really want to champion and make sure a lot of people know about is Kyle Kinnain. I don't know if you guys know who he is.
I know you're
brilliant comic. And then, of course, you have others like Lewis Black that, you got to really shout out. And we did mention Patton Oswalt earlier. Nobody mentioned a special of his, but
right.
And I think the last two I'm going to mention just real quick. We lost him a little bit ago, but John Panette, he was a really big guy. He was also a comedian who didn't really have to delve into the vulgarity or the foul language or anything like that to make you laugh. A lot of his stuff was, based on how big he was. It was a lot of self-deprecation humor, but there was also a lot of really, funny, kind-hearted stuff in there too. And I'm going to get a lot of flack for this. I don't care, because I think that this special is genius. I'm going to go with Vicious Circle, Dane Cook.
Oh.
You know what? That is a brilliantly executed special. I think it is great. I can understand.
Dane Cook was very, very, very funny early on. Yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah. It's unfortunate what happened to him with his brother and everything that kind of, threw him, into the whole ordeal that he had to go through. But I would like to actually see Dane Cook make a comeback. I think that would actually
that'd be cool. Yeah. No, I think he gets kind of made fun of, and he was really the first guy that used social media to his advantage.
He was built a giant.
It's giant. And he built himself up like that. Like he did. I mean, he just put in the work to get his name out there. So even if people hadn't heard of him, they'd see him all over social media and they'd go to the show. And he rose so quickly. But then a lot of people, it just and some of his later stuff wasn't as funny. I mean, I'm not going to sit there and say it was consistent. I think once he got to bigger venues and stuff, it started losing me. But some of that early stuff, he's got a Comedy Central special. My wife and I still quote him all the time. He's got this whole thing about the alien acid spit from the alien, and he's like, I want that. I want the acid spit. I mean, it's just silly stuff like that, but it's just, I don't know. It's very funny. It's unfortunate that I'm with you. That'd be great to see him come back.
Yeah. Jonathan, did you have any honorable mentions?
We already mentioned Eddie Murphy. I thought we should mention Delirious and Raw, because those are two I grew up on and watched all the time. Delirious, the first 20 minutes of that are basically impossible to get through now. And Eddie, and in all fairness to Eddie, he has been very forward about that and has been I was young, I've grown up, I can't believe I did that. So I'm definitely not knocking Eddie by any means, but the homophobic nature and stuff of that is really rough. Once you get past that, though, there's still some really great stuff in that. Raw has a little bit of that too. Raw also has this weird thing where he's talking about Bill Cosby's son, who has passed away, unfortunately.
Wasn't he
going
shot?
to one of his?
Wasn't he shot?
believe
His son.
So. I believe that's right. But he was, there's a whole bit about him going to one of his shows. It still has one of my favorite things though, where he talks about how he called Richard Pryor after that because Bill Cosby upset him, and I won't repeat it, but it's funny. But I thought those were worth mentioning. So those should be pretty easy to find. One, Delirious was 83, Raw was 87. The only other thing, and the only reason it didn't make my list, because I couldn't really figure out what it was, but Rodney Dangerfield used to host these HBO comedy specials, and Sam Kinison has like a section on one of them, and it's just like 30 minutes or something. And I had a hard time finding it, so that was why I really didn't put it in my top 5. But it's Sam Kinison, who we also lost way too young, was like I don't know anyone that can yell like Sam Kinison can,
right?
And it's like, it's not distracting. It's not like Bobcat Goldthwait, which Bobcat Goldthwait's actually funny. Yeah. But Kinison just, I don't know what that talent you would call that, but it's just unreal. Like, I don't even know how he had a voice after he would do a show.
He found a performance. It's almost like a singer, right? Can find a way to contract their vocal cords in a way that allows them to do certain things. And he just, he had that scream that he could just do.
But he has this whole, if you might have heard of this. I'm sorry, Andrew, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just going to say real quick about the special. There's a whole bit about, at the time, I don't know if people would know what this is now, but I guess the best comparison would be like the dog commercials we get now, where you can save the dogs with the Sarah McLachlan song playing.
Oh yeah.
Back in the 80s, it was the kids in Ethiopia were starving.
Oh yeah.
And for like $1.50 a month,
a cup of coffee sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so he did this whole bit, and it goes into like why you can't grow stuff in sand and all kinds of different ways, but it's so funny. It even still today, even though it's a little cringy, it still holds up because it actually makes a lot of sense what he's saying. But Sam Kinison, Richard Pryor Live at the Sunset Strip was one that I just haven't seen that in so long, but that was also one that I watched a lot. In my younger years, and
nice.
I just thought of one that if I would have thought of it as a comedy special, it would have made my top 5. But I'm gonna go ahead and shout it out now. Flight of the Conchords, live HBO.
Oh yeah, sure, so good.
I don't really think, but it's technically a stand-up special. It's
I agree.
With 2 guys,
I thought about Penn and Teller. Like, I almost put Penn and Teller on my list because I think they are 100% comics. If Amazing Jonathan is a stand-up comic, then Penn and Teller are comics. Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. So. But I think the HBO live performance by Flight of the Conchords would definitely make my top 5. Now that I think about it,
excellent. Well, there you go. Best ever stand-up specials. Again, we know we missed some. Absolutely understand that there's some you wanted to hear that we didn't mention.
Martin.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's no, we can't do it. We can't just start listing names. There are too many. So
Guild Alive.
Oh,
sorry. I'll quit. I'm quitting. I'm stopping. I promise.
I mean, hey, listen, it's already a supersized show because of the topic, like why not? But thanks for letting us do that. I think I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed kind of talking about that. And like you said, Jonathan, it may just be a night to fire up some comedy specials tonight because I need to see some of those.
Feeling it.
All right, let's move on to buried treasure. What's that one thing in any area of pop culture you want to make sure people know about? Guest always goes last on this. Andrew, why don't you kick us off?
I'm going with the Vigima game. One of my favorite game series of all time is Mass Effect. And they just released Mass Effect Legendary Edition, which is all 3 games combined into one, 4K remastered.
Nice.
And what I love about the Mass Effect trilogy is it's one of those kind of choose your own adventure in the sense that your choices do have consequences and ramifications. But the cool thing about it is your choices carry from one game to the next. So something you did in the first Mass Effect games, like if you let somebody live, they might show up in Mass Effect 2 or Mass Effect 3, but if you kill them, they're not going to show up in those games.
Mhm.
Mass Effect is, if I was going to say like a game series, not my favorite game of all time, but game series, I think Mass Effect would be what I would consider the greatest game series of all time.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah.
I'm going with Super Mario, but that's just me.
Yeah.
Me too, but that's because I haven't played a video game in like 15 years.
Right.
So
No,
yeah,
I'm
Super
with you.
Mario 3. You guys heard of that? It's great.
Super Mario Sunshine.
Yeah, I've already put about 50 hours in over the last couple weeks that it's been out. Because I'm a completionist. I have to do every single side quest and stuff like that.
Sure.
So.
No, I'm the same way, which is why I can't play video games anymore.
I had to quit playing them. I like video games, but I just I can't have one more thing. Like I'm out.
Yep. Yeah. I'm with you. I am glad that Lego Masters is back. Jonathan, you're going to hear this all over again because I talked about this on Behind the Scenes too. I could actually talk about, let me just say this. This show is so much fun. Will Arnett is such a great host. Watching people at this skill level do this kind of creation with these little plastic blocks just blows my mind. I love watching amazing people do amazing things, and this happens week after week after week in the show. I love how they have it set up. I love its sense of humor. I really enjoy it.
It's anxiety inducing.
The Lego Masters, there's your Lego Masters pitch. However, I will shift here and as my unofficial buried treasure say, because I didn't know this was going to be the case when I sent in my picks, but I did get a chance to see the first 2 episodes of Loki.
Nice.
So Disney sent those my way. That starts this week. And Andrew has taken out his headphones.
To take my headphones out, so I just really amped up your audience.
I know. It was so funny because that was my first thought. Andrew puts his hands over his ears, over his earbuds. So he's just making me louder.
Yeah.
That was really funny. I won't say anything spoilery. All I will say is I really, really, really enjoyed it. I am so pumped for the rest of this season.
It comes out Wednesday, right?
Correct. I think it's out this Wednesday.
Okay.
So I loved WandaVision, like really loved WandaVision. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I enjoyed, but not as much as WandaVision. I think I may end up loving this more than both of them. It is just so funny, so well done. It's playing with my brain in some really fun and interesting ways. Tom Hiddleston is just so great. Owen Wilson is great.
Is he like, hey Loki, hey Loki?
Yeah. Wow. Exactly.
Wow, Loki. Wow, where are you going in time this time, Loki?
Listen, the next 5 minutes is just going to be insanely bad Owen Wilson impressions.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh man.
Hey, wow.
So anyhow, that's all I will say about Loki is that I really enjoyed it, and I hope you guys do too because it's a lot of fun. It gave me the humor. I will say this: the humor reminded me of The Good Place. Reminded me of like The Good Place vibes.
I mean, that's high praise.
Wow.
Wow.
I'm a big fan of The Good Place.
Ted Danson, wow.
Jonathan, what is your buried treasure?
Mine is so dumb, but there's a new show that just came out on Amazon. It's called Panic. It is a 10-episode series. It is based on a YA novel by the great Lauren Oliver from 2014. I had not read the book, so I didn't know what this was going in. And as Aaron knows, I will say this is not a CW show, but it's not on the CW, but it is CW-esque, I would say, with its cast and everything. And as Aaron knows from being on working with me for the last 2 years, I weirdly watch a ton of CW shows. So I will say this is better than like something like Riverdale, though. So Aaron, you might even like it. But yeah, no, it's cool. Yeah, exactly. So this takes place in a small town in Texas called Carp. I didn't even look to see if that was a real place. No clue. But it's a small place in Texas. So there's not, it's not real. It's a place people kind of get stuck in. So they have this game for the seniors called Panic. And if you can win the game, you get $50,000. which would obviously give you the ability to get out of the town if you need to. So a lot of the seniors participate in this game. So that's a central setup. So basically the show, it's a lot of it is a mystery. Like you don't really know exactly what the game is, what it entails. So you kind of find out from week to week the things they're doing. It's kind of like they have to do like these crazy feats. Like you've got to jump off a cliff into water, and that's where it starts. And then it just kind of gets crazier after that.
Wow, watching a bunch of senior citizens do that must be insane. Different kind of seniors.
Seniors, high school seniors. Although these people probably are like 33, I have no idea, but they're supposed to be like 18.
It's that kind of a show where you have 34, 35-year-olds playing 17-year-olds.
They're probably not that old, but they're probably well in their 20s. But so they're doing all these things. So you have like the mystery of what's going on, like why is this game? You don't know who's running the game, so that's like a mystery that you're trying to figure, that you're finding out. Also, it's possible that people have died in the game. That's kind of a thing going on. So there's all this intrigue and stuff going on. It's a good cast. Most of the younger people I had never really seen that much of. Who's the person that plays Olivia Welch, who was in Unbelievable? She had a small part on the great show Unbelievable. She's also going to be on the upcoming Fear Street films that are going to be on Netflix. She's your main person. She's she's on the poorer side of town, and she had all this money saved up to get out of there to go to this school, and through various reasons she lost that money. So now she's having to try to win this. So she's kind of your main person, and there's your typical. There's like the stoner guy and the popular girl and all that kind of stuff. They don't shy away from that. But all the actors are a fair game. The adult cast is interesting. There's like Nancy McKeon, who played Jo on Facts of Life, is in this. Bonnie Bedelia, like from Die Hard and stuff, is also in this. Mariah Kelly from The Cutting Edge. I see, they have all these like 80s and 90s actors are kind of coming back and doing this show. So that's really cool. But no, I'm having a good time with it. It's not great. This isn't a show that's going to make Aaron cry, like Mayor of Easttown or something. But it's like the perfect show for the summer, man. It's
show good?
It's Mayor of Easttown.
Yeah. Mayor of Easttown's great.
Oh, it's great. I didn't realize. Yeah. I thought Aaron would have talked about it on here. I wasn't sure, but
he may have.
Well,
it's quite possible.
I don't know what Aaron says.
Yeah, no, it's Mayor of Easttown. Mayor of Easttown is like Emmy worthy. Talking
and then I say something.
Yeah, this is not Emmy worthy, but this is a lot of fun. This is like the perfect type of show for the summer. It's a summer movie on a television series. It's I had a really good time with it. So
it kind of sounds like The Hunger Games mixed with Nerve. Did you guys ever see Nerve? That Dave Franco?
Yes. It's very similar to Nerve. It is. It's a lot more. It's a lot more modern. I would say there's not a lot of tech savviness to it or anything, but yeah, it's definitely in that kind of vein.
Okay.
Amazon
sent me was bad.
Amazon sent me the season of this a while back, and when they were trying to promote it and stuff, and I got through the first 3 episodes, and I just I wasn't hooked enough to care. It really did feel very CW teenage angst, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
It's on Amazon. It's not on a network, so it's definitely it's a little darker and a little more to it than your average like CW show. But no, it feels very much. If you enjoy stuff like Riverdale or The 100, if you enjoy stuff like that, I think you're going to get it. I think you're going to enjoy this. If you don't, this probably won't do anything for you. So.
A low stakes show that you can just sit back and enjoy. And if somebody dies off, you're like, it sucks, but it's fine.
And it works. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do with it. They could definitely have another season, but it definitely works as a self-contained. That's the thing I'm having a hard time with these streaming shows, because like Netflix just cancels stuff like all the time. Like before I could even watch Jupiter's Legacy, that it's like, well, I'm not watching that now. Cause I mean, it's just like, I don't know. I don't want to get invested in something I know is not coming back. So
yeah, totally. That is Panic on Amazon Prime. Lego Masters is on Fox and Hulu. And the Mass Effect is
on all platforms.
On all platforms. So there you go. We did it, guys. We did a podcast.
Hey.
It was well done to all. Long episode. Who'd have thunk it?
Thanks so much for joining us today for Sif Pop. It is part of the Studio DNA Podcast Network. You can find out more about other shows on the network at studiodna.media or by searching Studio DNA in your podcast player. Huge thanks to Andrew for hanging out with us again today.
Thank you, buddy.
Big thanks to producer Phil for producing the audio and video show.
Thank you.
Big thanks to Drew for doing the visuals that you see during the show.
Big claps.
And thank you to Jonathan Watkins, my buddy from TV Sins in the Cinema Sins universe, coming by hanging out with us again today. Jonathan, do you have anything you want to promote? Anywhere you want to send people?
I mean, definitely if you aren't already, please check out Cinema Sins, TV Sins, Music Video Sins. We now have Commercial Sins. If you didn't know, that's a channel we launched a few months ago. So you can check all those out on YouTube. And I'm on Twitter at SamLoomis13. And you can also hear me every week, as Aaron has said, on Behind the Scenes. It's me and Aaron and the lovely Danae Hughes, or Denny Hughes, as she likes to go by.
as she prefers. Yes.
Denny Huggies.
Thank you to our Sif Pop members for giving monthly to make Sif Pop a real thing. Support starts at $3 a month. There's different levels. You can check all that out at patreon.com/siftpop. Lots of ways to connect with us. You can leave a comment, rating, review at Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. You can also email us feedback@siftpop.com if you have anything you want to say. And finally, if you're having a good time, your movie-loving friends will probably like the show too. So make sure you let them know about it, and that listening is much easier than being interested in everything all of the time. We will be back next week with In the Heights and Infinite, and we will see you then.
Bye.
Wow,
guys.
Mark
Thanks for watching.
Wahlberg, Infinite.
Funky Bunch.
Puck reviewer.
Hey, real quick, Jay Bourgeois, would it win at CW Bingo? Absolutely. Bourgeois.
Yes.
It would kill at CW Bingo. I always forget to mention the when I do guests on podcasts, I forget to mention the Patreon for Simpsons.
Let's see. Yeah, Jay Bourgeois, Mark RG, thanks for hanging out with us. Polar Knights says that we've got the perfect evolution of beards on the show today. So
I thought he was talking about Bo Burnham's beard evolution.
He might have been. He might have been, but I'm just telling
you.
Yeah.
We are Bo Burnham's beards. We are in the different stages.
And I shaved. I would have looked a little more like I would have been more Andrew-esque, but I did shave this.
And
morning.
I haven't shaved in 3 days, so there's just everybody grows different.
Do you have to shave?
I haven't shaved in 3 days either.
see, and we look the same. We look absolutely the same. I do have to shave.
I was kidding. I was totally
every 3 days. Probably.
I'm gonna have to check out Commercial Sins and see what you guys got.
Oh, it's fun, man.
I can't wait until you guys do head-on apply directly to the forehead Commercial Sins.
But Chris is the narrator on there, and it's great.
Oh,
it's good stuff.
Fun times. Well, we've already gone long. Don't want to keep everybody. I know everybody's got stuff to do. We love you. Thank you for watching the show. And you got a little special treat of a false start this week. So,
oh yeah, I forgot about that.
So.